thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I'm very honored that I get to chat with you, to learn more about you as both a person, as an artist, because your artistry is powerful. And you're also just this incredible person who brings so much joy but also rigor to life. And gotta say, I'm fangirling a little bit right now, even though I know but getting to know you more and getting to share that story is really exciting. So I hope you don't mind if I dive into some questions just to learn more.
Not at all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, so the first question, just to get a sense of who you are, is like, tell us more about the world you grew up in.
Yeah, it was southern Alberta. We grew up in Lethbridge and Blackfoot country. So yeah, and one of those unusual homes that has like two parents, and it was three of us kids. And we went to Catholic school because my mom is a residential school survivor, so she was at that time still indoctrinated. And so yeah, I went to Catholic school until the end of grade 4. And then we moved a bit north of Lethbridge to Innisfail. And yeah, it was a really story-loving home. We went to the library once a week with my dad, and there was never a limit to like the books that we could take out, but he was very strict about late fines, so that's that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always books, there's always stories, there's always music playing. So we were lucky in the way that the environment fostered a love of the arts. It wasn't, they didn't ever go, hey, go be an artist, but once the decision was made, I was lucky. I was supported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're talking about stories being important in your family. And how has that continued to be important in being an artist? You're many different things, an actor, a writer, director. But how does the basis of story inform everything for you?
Yeah, I think it's how we understand the world. I mean, I think we learned a lot about that, especially during lockdown, where, I mean, really the only thing still available to all of us was story. So books, streaming services, and spending, if you didn't live alone, spending time with people and retelling even the stories that you've heard a million times, but how different they always become because of context. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of lessons we didn't learn from lockdown, but if there's one that hopefully we did learn from that, it is that story defines us and creates and celebrates culture and can define and build community. And I think in many ways that's the big power that theater still has over almost every other medium, is that it brings people together live. And how much we miss that, like how deeply, I think we're still grieving when we didn't have that in many ways.
It is a very different thing. So you have done a lot of stuff both in film and theater.
Don't think I would quite say that I've done a lot of film. We're moving in that direction, like with Article 11, Andy and I are moving towards film. What I love about film, really the thing I love the most about it, is that it can be accessed by so many people.
Right.
I remember I think I was 34 years old the first time that my cousins who live on the res came to see a play of mine. And that's because it was within an hour driving distance from their reserve. So they could access it, physically access it. But aside from that, I mean, there are a lot of people who don't, want to navigate going downtown in any given city and like spending money on parking, buying a ticket, entering a building that maybe they've never felt welcome in before.
Yep.
So there's so many elements to theater that I think are not inclusive in spite of some people's best efforts. Whereas film is something that, because of the internet, this newfangled invention, so many people can get at them.
Yeah.
So, and they're always going to be there. I mean, people will end at some point, but as long as there's people, we will have access to those stories, because it's not ephemeral. It's not in the way that theater just disappears. And it's a way for us all to have a communal record that we agree to, or that we can have conversations about if we disagree to it. So there's, just the way that film can be disseminated and accessed, I think is, it's a great leveler in that way.
I'm interested in this idea of, you started Article 11, but previously to that, like, you've run other companies. And what is that difference? And what led you to creating Article 11?
Yeah, Article 11, really, we wanted to create the company because we wanted to be able to center Indigenous tellings and artists in the ways that we like to operate in the world. So outside of colonial structures such as the ironically called equity, you know, we don't we do our best not to deal with PACT and CTA, you know, all of these organizations that govern how theater is supposed to be created in this colonized nation. We disagree with it. We want to be able to pay people more money without having it go to an organization that has too many administrators that, in my opinion, don't do enough for the actual members. We want to be able to gather and have a budget that provides food so that we can all sit together and eat, you know, as you've done for this project. Gathering in ways that feel a building of a temporary home in a way. So you show up and you are respected for exactly who you are. You have your own sense of agency. And the other thing about ensuring that we can center Indigenous tellings and stories and artists is that when Indigenous artists come in to collaborate, they don't feel the need to have to translate who they are, what they believe, what their practices are. So it's, you know, there's a lot of talk about safe spaces, and often it's quite a lot of work to create those. But when a colonial power just isn't in the room, it's a lot easier to create that for Indigenous artists. So that's a big part of why we started Article 11. And in part because we love to collaborate together, Andy and myself. And it was a way of you know, seeking out funding that, you know, taking kind of dirty money and laundering it in our way and then offering people Indigenous stories. It feels like a good thing to do with your life, with our lives. So yeah, so we're running this little company, and we're a little company that kind of does big art. I mean, we've toured works to Aotearoa, Australia, been to Edinburgh a couple times, and we're quite well received out there. It's a little trickier here on Turtle Island because I think our work is quite confrontational in the eyes of like hegemonic society here. So that's a little trickier, but we're making it happen, and we feel the need for the way that we tell stories here, and we hear them from our immediate Indigenous community, and we just want to make sure, like other companies here in Mohkinstsis, like Making Treaty 7 and Thumbs Up Good Work, we just want to make sure that we can deliver it in a way that, like you said, that has joy and rigor and, you know, all of my favorite things. That's really kind of what we want to do. So that's what we try to do. Like Article 11, we created from the two of us coming together and making something, whereas I was at Native Earth for just under 3 years as artistic director there. And it was, I mean, Thompson Highway founded that with a very small handful of other artists in the early 80s in downtown Toronto, right beside this great library, actually. And it was already an institution. It had its own stories. There were legends of that place, and you know, of course, there are people like 10 or 20 years older than me who would stop by the office and visit and say, "Oh, it's not like how it used to be," and we'd be like, "Yeah, now we have a bigger budget, and we can, you know, we're performing on main stages," and of course, there's a trade-off because when it was more of a grassroots organization, there's just a lot more freedom inside of that. You don't have to deal with all of the glad handing and the conferences and meeting with funders and all of the hard things. Like, it's hard to do arts administration. It's whenever I see artistic direction change hands, I always, you know, send up a little, like, just a few good words for the new AD, because it's a service position in a very real way, and it takes a lot out of you, and community never stops asking for more. So your dynamic changes out there. So when I was just a freelance artist, people would be interested in my art, but as soon as I became an artistic director, friends were asking me, was there anything for them in the season? Oh. And you can't program with a mind to that because there are so many brilliant artists. So you really have to curate the season around what you feel would nourish the whole community at that time, not how will I cast this one person who's a great artist and my good friend. You can't do it. So it's hard. There's there's strange pressures that come from outside and from even right close by that you wouldn't expect, but are always there.
So with Article 11, you do a lot of the work that you have written. And I just would love to dig more into how you write. Why don't we start at the beginning with, like, how does an idea come into your brain or start to germinate or come to life?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's always different. I guess there's a few, I think I have enough plays now that I realize that each one can kind of go into these certain categories. So I'm able to kind of like see the different ways. So one big one is, and this is something I've had great conversations with Australian friends about, is during dreaming time. You know, that's when ancestor and spirit world is often believed to be actually awake. So while we dream, I think there can be communication happening. So for my first kind of like non-self-produced piece, which is Dreary Nizzy at Native Earth, that was a dream moment. I saw very clearly, and right down to, and it didn't occur to me in a theater way. It occurred to me the way that we see films. So like, and the way that the human eye sees, you know, which is another great thing that film can do, is pull focus in that way, or specialize focus. I saw every element to it. I saw these sisters in a Greyhound bus station, and the one who has special needs, who's very fetally affected by alcohol, has to be cared for as though she's about 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
So her adult sister, they're both adults, but her adult sister is her caretaker. And I saw the one sister, Deirdre, buying the Greyhound bus tickets, and looks up and can't find her sister Isabel anywhere. Panic. Oh. You know, because she's an adult, but with an innocent curiosity, so she could end up anywhere. And I just dreamt that scene very, very clearly. I woke up knowing exactly who the sisters were. I had their names, I had their surnames, I knew where they lived. All of that was given to me in the dreaming. And so wrote the play from that moment on, and then realized actually that's the end of the actual play. So then backed way up to, how did we get here? How is Deirdre the caretaker? And when I was younger, things came a lot more quickly. I don't know if it's like, you know, the more we learn, or the more we remember about how to be a person, I think makes us more careful. So I think maybe when I was younger, it was faster. So I wrote the first 40 pages of that play probably in about 2 days.
Oh, wow.
And it was just arriving. So it was just, I was just the scribe, you know, it was just there. And then I was stuck, and then I had to travel because my sister was going to have her baby in Lethbridge, which is where the play was set. So it felt really right to go home. I didn't sleep on the plane, which is unusual. Got to my sister's house, had a shrieking nightmare that night. And in that nightmare, the name of Freddie Seven Horses came to me. And I just heard the doorbell ring, and then I wrote the rest of the play that week. So that piece, it's a 2-act piece, and I probably worked on it for about 6 or 7 days. So it arrived very quickly. And then, of course, the math of it happens after, right? Yes, yeah. It was nowhere close to being a perfect draft. So then you have to like weigh all the moments against each other, and probably ended up by like producing draft 14 or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so workshopping, bringing in actors who I imagined from the beginning, bringing in people who knew how to workshop. I didn't know how to workshop plays yet. I hadn't done it. Those people who can do that, the acupuncture of dramaturgy in a beautiful way, to like demystify clues that you left for yourself but you haven't picked up yet, I think is a big part of it. So that's the type of play that arrives almost whole. Yeah. And then ultimately the work of it is getting out of your own way to let the thing become what it needs to be, rather than falling in love with your own phraseology, or if there's a certain moment that you're like, oh, this is the crux of the thing, and then you realize, nope, that's the seed for maybe your 3rd to next play or your 10th to next play, and just saving all your cuttings. And I have so many oddly named folders that are like cuttings of things that I've gone back to and gone, oh, that was you, and then like putting that in the mouths of this other character that comes 10 years later. So it's like always being in dialogue with yourself, which is weird, as you know, when you're in many ways an introvert, to become sick of your own voice after working on something for a while, you know? And often that's when you're like, I need actors on this. Like I need more minds and voices so badly.
Yeah, to hear it outside of in here.
Yeah. And to learn what's still in there and is in fact not on the page is so huge.
Oh, that's such a big thing in terms of what hasn't come across. Yeah. I think, you know, as you're talking about that piece, I think of a word I believe you've used with Article 11 of uncompromising. And this idea of needing to tell the truth, like that the truth even if it's hard, needs to be shared. And this, coming back to the idea of like, what is the importance of story? And it can be difficult as an audience to be in that theater, whether it's a movie theater or a stage, to be there experiencing those very visceral and raw moments, in the ones that I've experienced, at least, of your work. And why is that important? Or why do you, like, almost unflinchingly, like, you write hard, intense work often, but it is important. And so why do you think that's important to share with the community or to have those stories told?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Yeah, no, it has to be important. I mean, it's so hard to do. It's so hard to gather the resources to get a team together who's going to all move in kindness and towards the same goal together at a similar or relatable rate. You know, it's so hard, and so it has to matter, and it has to. Yeah, there just has to be a point to it. I mean, I love a good comedy. I love a great comedy, but I also think that the greatest comedians are very politicized and are a little bit scary, a little bit dangerous, and do work that matters. That's important. I mean, one of the people I admire the most, his writing, is Thomas King, and he's very hilarious in a very grim kind of way, but it's always from a place that feels really important, and a place that is wanting to illuminate really the humanity of Indigenous people and Indigenous stories. So, and this is something we've talked about before, but it feels to me that what the goal needs to be when we tell a story is that we need to expand empathy in the audience. So whether it is for the self or for any of the other people that make you yourself or people way outside of your orbit, it has to be something that will help you just wake up another day and love the smell of coffee and want to eat food with friends and be out there and feeling like you have an impact, like there's something that there's something you can offer the world, and not just your tight circle, but you know, there's like this thing going around Indigenous, you know, socials right now, which is real self-care is community care.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people are in crisis right now all around the world, and if we can't relate to people who have an experience that's different than ours, then we're in a lot of trouble. So get really specific with the story that you're telling, set it in a place, make the characters very full and whole. I feel like we always have to have somebody to love in the story.
Yes.
I can't get into stories where I can't love somebody or everybody to some degree. And I also feel that way as a writer. Every single character I write, I love very much. Even the ones that are evil as hell, I love them, and I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So, and I think even that, the practice of writing and then actualizing theater helps us to expand empathy inside ourselves for other people and different experiences. Yeah, it has to matter. I just really believe that.
Ask one final question,
Okay.
and it's a bit broad again, but you know, the point of this is talking about a whole, like, the longevity of career and the legacies people leave behind. But it also, you know, everyone starts off younger, less established, and whether there's something that you would share as perhaps a piece of advice for people who are starting or in the middle of their journey or their path in the arts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. This is something that's come up since I was young.
Yeah.
People ask me, like, as soon as I got produced, do you have any advice for me on how I can? And really, I think the most important thing for every artist, and to do this regularly, is to create your personal artistic mandate. List who you're accountable to, whose stories you do tell, that you can tell.
Good point.
Because that is who you're accountable to. And even if you can define a few goals, like even if it's, you know, I really want to write a musical about umbrellas. I don't know why that occurred to me, but because once you do start to work, you're going to have to make choices. So it's like, am I going to do this Fringe show for no money because it's about a subject that's core to me, and take a waitressing job and a retail job so that I can afford to do that play when I'm 19? Or do I need to like forego that Fringe play because it actually isn't important to me but it would serve my ego to be a lead in a piece that doesn't really matter to me. So, and I think those answers are always clear, but in the moment it can be really hard. Or when you become more fortunate and more established and you get offered two things at the same time, and that always happens, to be really true about which thing you want to be giving your life force to.
Yeah.
So hard, but important. And you can easily convince yourself to do the one that pays more money. But if you have your artist mandate, you can step away, look at these words that you typed out for yourself one fine day, and see how much of it still rings true, and make amendments to it as you go along. So yeah, and it also, I think, even though it's a personal artistic mandate, if you include who you're accountable to, then it's always going to be about more than just you. And so it's not going to be an ego-motivated project that you're going to center. And sometimes important projects do actually boost our egos a lot, but in many ways, that if that boost comes from because you're contributing to the larger world, then that's great, and that's healthy, and that's good. And it's going to help you keep doing what you need to do and keep applying the gifts that you've been given, which are sacred. So that's something that you can't neglect. Otherwise, you do fall into feeling inconsequential and that you don't have anything to contribute, and that's grim.
That is very grim.
Yeah, don't be grim.
Don't be grim. That's your summed up. Don't be grim.
Yeah, keep living as long as you can. We need you.
Well, yeah, it is true. Each artist brings something unique and
Yeah.
important in terms of their own stories that they can bring.
Yeah, that's
So I think it is important to go back to what I would call sort of like values and because it can be hard.
It's so hard. Yeah, remembering the core of your makeup is so important, and it's easy to lose track of. So write it down.
Write it down.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to say thank you again. How do I wrap this up? I don't know.
Should we hug it out? Is that
I
gonna be a
don't know.
thing?
I don't know about the height. or
We
whatever.
gotta.
I don't know how long we've been chatting.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tara.
Then do we
Great.
sit back down?
I don't know.
All right, KP. There's so much I actually don't know about you. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like we mostly know each other from working circles.
Yes. From
Yeah.
lobbies.
Yes, from lobbies.
Yeah, lobby life. I am very interested, partly because it's been a part of my journey. But how did you make the decision to apply to be AD at Verb? And then when it was offered, how did you know that you would want to commit your time to that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I felt like I'd been on a trajectory to be an artistic director for a bit. I was artistic associate at Vertigo Theatre, and then Jenna Rogers and Craig Hall, who were the artistic team there, always said that this artistic associate position is sort of crafted so that person would eventually go and run their own company. So I think there's a small part of it that was like, well, I think this is what I'm supposed to do. But then the interview process for the job was great because it gave me a chance to almost practice what that job would actually be like, the questions that they asked me in the interview. And something that really clicked was they asked a question that I won't get into the details about it because it's not actually that interesting. What was interesting about it was the crux of the question was about community. And as soon as they asked me and I realized my answer was that I wanted to build more community and serve community and just examine what leadership actually looked like for me, that's when I was like, this is a position I really want and a job I really want. And then when I was offered it, it was sort of like, it was kind of a terrifying thing to say yes to. Verb Theatre we're not a big theater, but it's still a company. And you and I have talked about that, of like indie theater, running theater in general is a lot of work, it's hard. But I think once again, what ultimately made me be like, yeah, was the excitement at getting to serve my community and work with people I love. Because it's fun. Like what we do is supposed to be fun, and it can be really fun. So,
I'm really interested in, because you are such a multifaceted artist, what would you say, what are like either moments or people or experiences that you've clocked as, oh, this is part of my becoming?
So I think times for me where I felt like this is truly shaping me as an artist. Specifically, I'm thinking of a time I've just finished working with one of my collaborative partners, Geneviève Paré, who's an incredible actor, producer, creator in town. We just finished a collaborative food experience. We took somebody's house that's usually an Airbnb and turned it into like a live art experience and invited people in, and they'd eat while watching mini performances in each room. So like very, very indie theater. Like it was just Jen and I running the whole thing. And at the end of it, Jen's mom, Georgette Paré, who's also a really big, wonderful creator in town, gave me a hug, said thank you for the show. And she said, "This is how a family is made." And there's something about that that's really stuck with me. And I clocked that in the moment of like, oh, she's right. Every time I felt a really intense sort of kinship or a really intense creative kind of like bloom almost, I have thought like, oh, this is me sort of becoming more of myself, becoming more of the artist that I know.
Yeah, it sounded like a creation of a place of belonging.
The idea of belonging too, like thank you for that word, because I think that's something that people crave in live performance a lot, is a feeling of togetherness and belonging and feeling like you are a part of something.
What was your first artistic language?
Music. Yeah, easy. Music for my family was really, really important around gatherings, holidays, and just like a day-to-day life. Everyone in my family plays music. I always make the joke that I'm like the least talented. And then people are like, "You're being mean to yourself." I'm like, I think I'm pretty good. My family's like really excellent.
Oh, wow.
And I think that, once again, that has like aliveness, right? And it has ability to jam and speak to somebody through a language that all of us can understand, which is music. And that was really invigorating for me.
Wow. How do you think that informs theater making for you?
Oh, like when I'm directing a show, I always talk about, I usually share a playlist with the team. I feel like this is kind of the music that I imagine, not in the show, but sort of tells the show's story.
Yeah.
And I think music's such a helpful thing to reference when you're directing, because you can talk about tempo and accents and even like key or tone. I think this is where I'm like, I think a lot of art, just like most things in life, things sort of bleed into each other, right? We can find commonality in language in every style of art, every medium.
How do you, so with Verb, how, and as a director, is there like a certain, like, how do you find you're into the thing? Like, how do you decide what to program? What is, what's your in? How do you know that this thing is, that you're going to contribute to it?
Yeah, I've been chatting with a lot of people about this recently. I was commenting that it's something I'm learning. I'm still building the muscle of, as an AD, how to decide on a show. Like, because I have an in, usually it's through music. I get drawn to shows that are musical but are not a musical, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it might have a lot of music built into it as another language. Shows that raise difficult questions that I want people to have conversation about. My in sometimes is just a feeling, like an excitement.
Yeah.
Like I can picture this and I'm excited by it.
Or it feels somehow like it's actually speaking to you.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
you can be in dialogue with it.
Yeah.
We've spoken of community and the people that we are accountable to or who we serve, and of course that's all comes from love, which is a wonderful thing. How do you, both as an independent artist and as an artistic director, think about succession? I know you recently just arrived at Verb, but of course it's an entity that existed before you got there. So at some point it will evolve out of your hands.
As it should.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on all of those big things?
I have so many thoughts. I think I can be fairly succinct. I'm like, I never want to assume I know more than I do.
Nice.
So with that in mind, I really try to like just go for coffee with people, like get to know them a little bit, hear their thoughts about things, invite folks to, these are more like logistical things, but invite people to come and like watch a rehearsal. But then eventually when Verb has the ability to support emerging artists and or any artist, I want to be able to like not direct every show and pass it off to folks. In terms of like how we broaden that from not just emerging younger artists, but everybody, I think co-pros are such a strong idea. And going back to the question about like, how do you plan a season, what work sticks out to you? Like, I think it's important to think about that when you're reading a script. Like, what are the ages of the characters? What are the possibilities with our team who's working on the show? Who can I learn from? Does the show offer a challenge or something that I can learn from doing the show? Actually, that's it. I think it's like making sure I challenge myself. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, it does, for sure. Yeah, and of course it reinforces that you're so much the right choice to be a leader in this community. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a service position, and I think there's like a wisdom that I don't think I've fully acquired yet, but that I hear in you, which is the excitement inside of not knowing everything and feeling like that's opportunity instead of like a lack. You know, it's like it's a gift, and that I think moves you, I think, towards collaborating in that way. So that's great. I think you're so great.
Oh, thank you. I think you're so great.
That's okay.
Yay! Thanks for doing this.